You might think you're on track to retire early, but in reality, you'll never be able to afford that lifestyle without burning through your retirement savings in just a few years. Making the wrong assumptions can completely derail your retirement, especially if you're an expat where you often need to be far more proactive with your retirement planning. I work with British and Irish expat couples every day and I see these mistakes firsthand. So today, I'm going to break down and help you to avoid 6 dangerous assumptions you might be making today that could ruin your retirement. The first assumption is around stock market returns. Many people online seem to think that the stock market delivers annual returns of 10% and then base their retirement plans on that number. The reality is that this 10% figure is mainly based on more recent US market data. In other words, it focuses on a more recent time period, it ignores the rest of the global stock market, and perhaps most importantly, it uses nominal returns rather than real returns, i.e. before inflation rather than after. So this headline figure may not be a true reflection of long-term returns or what you might experience in the future, which makes it a relatively unstable foundation on which to build your retirement plan. The reality is, if we look at stock market data going all the way back to 1900, long-term real returns, so returns after inflation, have been around 6% for the US stock market and around 5% for global equities. So it's far safer to plan for a more conservative growth rate, say between 4 and 7%, depending on your asset allocation or your portfolio's risk level. And that way, if your assumptions turn out to be wrong, then it's going to be good news rather than bad news. Lots of people head into retirement thinking they can simply live off the growth of their portfolio and withdraw that amount each year without eroding their original capital. But it's a little bit more complicated than that. Even if you achieve a solid average annual return, returns are not linear. So your portfolio might be 20% up one year, then 15% down the next. Now I know that most people understand that returns are not linear and that markets go up, down, and all over the place over the short term, but what most people don't understand is how that interacts with your retirement planning when you start to spend down your portfolio. Which brings us to sequence of returns risk. And sequence of returns risk is especially critical in retirement. It refers to how the order in which you experience returns, combined with the timing of your withdrawals, can significantly impact how long your retirement savings last. Even if you achieve a great average return over your entire retirement, the sequence of those returns matters a lot. Let's illustrate this with examples. Let's call them Sarah and John. Both retirees start with £1 million invested and withdraw £50,000 per year for their living expenses. They both achieve an average annual return of 6%. Sarah gets lucky with strong returns in the early years, followed by weaker returns later on. Over the first 6 years of her retirement, her returns are plus 20%, plus 14%, plus 13%, and then minus 1%, minus 3%, and minus 10%. John, however, is unlucky. He experiences a market downturn during his first few years of retirement, before things eventually pick up again. John achieves the exact same returns as Sarah, but in reverse order. So minus 10%, minus 3%, minus 1%, and then plus 13%, plus 14%, and plus 20%. The result? Just 6 years into retirement, Sarah has over £120,000 more than John. Despite both experiencing the same 6% average return over those 6 years, Sarah actually ends up with more money than she started with, while John has already drained a significant portion of his retirement savings. And that's the impact of sequence of returns risk. Those early losses, combined with John's fixed withdrawals, leave his portfolio with less time to recover. And that creates an erosion effect, meaning he could run out of money long before Sarah does. Don't worry, a well thought out retirement plan can create a withdrawal strategy and help mitigate sequence of returns risk. But as you can see, making the wrong assumptions and not planning properly can seriously harm your retirement. Many people think, I'm not saving much now, but I'll catch up later. This is one of the most dangerous retirement planning assumptions you can make. Investing and compound growth is all about time. I've said it before and I will say it again repeatedly on this channel. Time is the single biggest contributor to your wealth building. So the longer you delay investing, the less time your money has to grow. Let's go back to Sarah and John and show how this plays out. On the surface of it, you might simply see that they both retired with the same £1 million nest egg. But how they got there was actually very different. Sarah started investing at age 30 with £1,000 per month, growing her retirement pot to £1 million by age 60. John, on the other hand, put investing off for a while, and he only started at age 40. If he had saved at the same rate, £1,000 per month as Sarah, he'd only have had £462,000 by age 60. So to reach the same goal and retire on time at 60, he had to work more than twice as hard as Sarah to pick up the slack, and he had to save £2,200 per month. And that put a lot more stress on his day-to-day finances. So don't be like John, don't delay investing. The longer you wait, the harder you'll have to work to catch up, which will mean you'll have to sacrifice your lifestyle, delay retirement, or reduce your expectations around how much you'll actually be able to spend in retirement. And nobody wants to do that. So start investing as early as possible to let your investments snowball, meaning minimal stress later on. Many people count on an inheritance to fund their retirement, but that's a risky assumption for a few reasons. Firstly, it's not guaranteed, so who knows, that inheritance might go to somebody else. You hope it doesn't, but ultimately it's not up to you. It's not your money, you didn't earn it, and you don't control it, so it's wise not to rely on it. Second, people are living longer and longer now, so even if you have a close family and you communicate plans very well with each other, your parents might still need those funds for their own retirement. Things like medical expenses or unexpected changes in their situations could eat into the inheritance that you're expecting to receive. And thirdly, many people don't anticipate the impact of tax or legal costs. Between organising and winding up the estate, paying inheritance tax and going through probate, the costs can add up and people can often end up disappointed with the final amount they receive. Bottom line, don't rely on money that isn't guaranteed. Build your retirement plan independent of any potential inheritance. Inflation is probably the biggest threat to your retirement. Yet so many people fail to factor it into their retirement planning. Most central banks around the world have an inflation target of 2%. So assuming 2% inflation, that means that someone retiring today looking to spend £60,000 per year will need to increase their spending by 2% each year just to maintain the same standard of living they have today. So in year 2, you'll need $61,200, in year 3, $62,400, and so on. If your retirement plan doesn't factor in inflation, your purchasing power will steadily erode and you will run out of money far sooner than you expected. Even the most detailed retirement plan can crumble if inflation is overlooked. Here's an example. This retirement plan looks impressive on the surface. For the sake of time and keeping this video to within about 10 minutes, I won't show you all the detail under the bonnet, but it covers everything in a lot of detail, from anticipated investment returns and university fees for the kids, to annual holiday plans, taxes, and how they plan to draw down their assets to fund their retirement. At first glance, it seems bulletproof. This couple appears to have no concerns about running out of money and even expects to leave around £750,000 to their children. However, there's a critical flaw. They haven't accounted for inflation. And once they factor it in, their financial outlook shifts from comfortable to concerning very quickly. What they thought would be a secure retirement could actually see them running out of money as early as age 73. So if you want to achieve a comfortable retirement and avoid any nasty surprises, make sure that your retirement plans account for inflation. The last assumption is assuming you live to the average life expectancy. But what if you live longer? It's a funny one to think about because not dying is objectively a good thing. But when it comes to our money and the sustainability of our retirement savings, it's actually a risk because the longer we live, the longer our savings have to last for. So actually, when you think about it, taking up smoking and skydiving is actually really good for your retirement plan. But on a serious note, here's the data around life expectancy. According to the UK's Office for National Statistics, the average 65-year-old woman today has a life expectancy of 87 years. There's a 1 in 4 chance she'll live to 94, a 1 in 10 chance of reaching 98, and around a 1 in 20 chance she'll reach 100. So if your retirement plan only covers you until age 80, you could run out of money just when you need it most. So plan for the possibility of a longer than average lifespan to make sure you don't outlive your savings. So there you have it, 6 dangerous assumptions that could derail your retirement. Don't bank on the stock market consistently delivering 10% returns. Plan with more conservative numbers so that you only leave room for good news. Understand sequence of returns risk and that the timing of your returns and withdrawals matters. Make sure you have a plan for this and have a clear withdrawal strategy heading into retirement. Don't delay investing. You can't just make up for it later. Don't rely on an inheritance to fund your retirement. Always factor in inflation to protect the purchasing power of your money. And don't underestimate your lifespan. Plan for a long and healthy retirement. If you found this video helpful, hit the like button and subscribe for more bite-sized tips on navigating the world of personal finance and investing as an expat. And of course, if you've got any questions, drop them in the comments. Otherwise, see you soon.